Ever wondered how URLs handle special characters? That's where URL encoding comes into play. Welcome to the intriguing world of URL encoding. This might sound like a complex concept, but let's break it down into simpler terms. Imagine you're trying to send a letter, but it contains some special symbols that the post office doesn't recognize. What do? You replace those symbols with ones that the post office can understand. In essence, that's what URL encoding does. Now, URLs are like the addresses on the internet. They need to be precise, unambiguous, and universally understood. However, certain characters like spaces, ampersands, and non-ASCII symbols can be misinterpreted by web servers. This is where URL encoding comes in handy. It's a mechanism that replaces these troublesome characters with their corresponding hexadecimal representations. This ensures that the URL is transmitted correctly over the internet without any loss of information. Think of URL encoding as a translator. It takes a URL that may contain special characters and translates it into a language that the internet can understand. This language is a series of alphanumeric characters and a few special symbols. It's a bit like Morse code, but for the internet. URL encoding is crucial in web development. It plays a vital role in ensuring that data is transmitted correctly and without any misunderstandings. For instance, when you're passing data via a query string or embedding URLs within other URLs, you'll need to use URL encoding to make sure everything goes smoothly. But it's not just about replacing special characters. URL encoding also helps maintain compatibility across different platforms. By specifying a character encoding, such as UTF-8, when encoding URLs, you ensure that your web applications can communicate effectively with various browsers and servers. So URL encoding is all about replacing special characters with safe ones. But how exactly does this process work? Let's delve deeper. The process of URL encoding might seem complex, but it's actually quite straightforward. You see, URL encoding is a sort of language translator for the internet. It ensures that all the special characters in a URL are properly understood when transmitted over the web. In the world of URL encoding, special characters are like tourists in a foreign country. They need a translator, and in this case, the translator is a % symbol, followed by 2 hexadecimal digits. This combination is universally understood in the internet world, making it a reliable translator. Let's take an example. Suppose you have a space in your URL, like in and-t. Now, spaces are not allowed in a URL, so we need to replace it with a %20. This %20 is the URL encoded representation of a space. Similarly, the ampersand and is replaced with %26. But how do we decide which hexadecimal representation to use? That's where ASCII or UTF-8 character encoding comes into play. Each character has a specific ASCII or UTF-8 code, and we use the hexadecimal equivalent of this code in URL encoding. For instance, the ASCII code for a space is 32, and its hexadecimal equivalent is 20. Hence, a space is represented as %20 in URL encoding. One thing to remember is that not all characters need to be encoded. Alphanumeric characters and a few special characters like underscore and asterisk are safe and need no translation. They are like seasoned travelers who know the local language. The beauty of this process is that it's completely reversible. When the URL reaches its destination, the encoded characters are decoded back to their original form. This ensures that the information in the URL is accurately conveyed, irrespective of the special characters it contains. And that's how URL encoding works. But how do we implement this in our code? Let's take a look. Different programming languages have different ways to handle URL encoding. Let's explore how this is done in some of the most commonly used languages. First up is Java. In Java, we use the URLEncoder class to encode URLs. The code looks like this. We import the URLEncoder class from the java.net package, then define our original URL as a string. We call the encode method on URLEncoder, passing our original URL and the character encoding method, in this case, UTF-8. The result is an encoded URL which we print to the console. Moving on to JavaScript, we use the EncodedUrl component function. The process is similar. Define the original URL as a string, then call the EncodedUrl component function, passing in our original URL. The encoded URL is printed to the console. Next, let's look at PHP. Here we use the URLEncode function. As before, we define our original URL as a string, then call the URLEncode function on it. We print the encoded URL with an echo statement. In Python, we use the urlib.parse module to encode URLs. We import the urlib.parse module, define our original URL, then use the quote method from urlib.parse to encode it. The encoded URL is printed to the console. When it comes to Ruby, the CGI escape method does the trick. We require the CGI library, define our original URL, and call the escape method on CGI, passing in our original URL. The encoded URL is output with a put statement. Finally, in C#, we use the HTTP utility URLEncode method to encode URLs. We start by using the system and system web namespaces. We define our original URL, then call the URLEncode method on HTTP utility. The result, our encoded URL, is written to the console with a write-line statement. A few things to remember. URL encoding should be used when passing data via the query string or embedding URLs within other URLs. Always specify the character encoding when encoding URLs to ensure compatibility across different platforms. URL encoding is necessary to handle special characters, such as spaces, ampersands, and non-ASCII characters in URLs. By encoding URLs properly, you can ensure that your web applications handle special characters correctly and maintain compatibility with various browsers and servers. So these were some ways to encode URLs in different programming languages. But before we go, let's summarize what we've learned. URL encoding is an essential aspect of web development, and it's important to understand its nuances. Let's do a quick recap of what we've covered so far. URL encoding is a method of transforming special characters in a URL into a format that can be transmitted safely over the internet. It works by replacing these characters with their hexadecimal representations, thus ensuring they are correctly interpreted by browsers and servers alike. This process is not just a technical detail, but a key aspect of web development. Whether you're passing data via the query string or embedding URLs within other URLs, URL encoding is a must. It ensures that your URLs are properly formatted and understood, regardless of the platform or browser in use. We've seen how to implement URL encoding in various programming languages, each with its unique approach. Java utilizes the URLEncoder class, while JavaScript makes use of the EncodedURL function. PHP developers can employ the URLEncode function. Python programmers have the urlib.parse module at their disposal, and Ruby developers can use the CGI.escape method. And for those working in C#, the HTTP utility URLEncode method is the way to go. Remember, always specify the character encoding, such as UTF-8, when encoding URLs. This step ensures compatibility across different platforms, helping your web applications to function as intended. Moreover, URL encoding is necessary to handle special characters, such as spaces, ampersands, and non-ASCII characters in URLs. These characters can disrupt the proper functioning of your URLs if not handled correctly. Therefore, URL encoding is not just about making your URLs look tidy, it's about ensuring they work correctly. And that's a wrap on URL encoding. Remember, a properly encoded URL is not just about aesthetics, it's about ensuring your web applications function correctly. Until next time, happy coding!